Hello and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. 201, that's where Kevin McCarthy's vote count stands, falling 17 votes short from winning the gavel to become Speaker of the House. Democrats continuing to criticize this historic battle as a slowdown of the American people's business. Meanwhile, others calling the process a healthy form of democracy. There was a new nomination today and one vote for former President Trump. Here's NTD's Melina Wisecup with more from Capitol Hill. So, Melina, where are we as things stand right now, and how's it looking moving forward?
So here's where we're at right now. For the first time since the 1800s, Congress had to enter a 10th round of voting when electing House Speaker. It's looking like McCarthy has not gained any support, but he hasn't lost any support either. So we're really sitting at a stalemate. McCarthy's sitting at around 200 votes, and there's still those 20 defectors that are unwilling to vote for McCarthy right now. So at one point you had 3 Republican nominees and 1 Democrat nominee. And Republicans have continued to vote for Byron Donalds. He's been one of the nominees, but he's also lost some support, but that's because they've nominated another member of the House Freedom Caucus, which is Representative Kevin Hern. So it's interesting also to look at the differences of opinion within the House Freedom Caucus itself, because the majority of the people who are opposing McCarthy right now are from the House Freedom Caucus. But then you had Representative Troy Niels, who's also a member of the Freedom Caucus, standing up today and nominating McCarthy. But here's what those opposing votes who are still unwilling to move in McCarthy's direction are saying about the reason why they're continuing this delay.
I love the conversations that are going on the floor, in the cloakroom, in the halls. There's nothing extreme, there's nothing unreasonable. We're trying to get this right. As my conservative colleagues and I have stated time and time again, Congress is broken and fundamentally needs change.
And as for how those negotiations are going, well, Representative Scott Perry, who's been one of those leading voices in opposing McCarthy, says there's no deal whatsoever. Also, he expressed frustration about whatever internal negotiations they are having being leaked out to the press, pointing to some trust issues here. But he says he would rather this process take a couple of days and get it right rather than them to continue with the status quo. But this delay has given Democrats room to criticize Republicans' ability to govern. Here's Democrat leader Hakeem Jeffries today commenting on this issue, and Democrats have been united behind Jeffries all 3 days.
It's time for the Republicans to get their act together. And we as Democrats are ready, willing, and able to partner with them to find common ground whenever and wherever possible. Not as Democrats, not as Republicans, as Americans. It's time for Congress to get to work.
And this first quarter is critical. That's according to Representative Mike Gallagher, who will chair the Select Committee on China. He told me today that he's now having to revise those plans that he made and prepare to work overtime to make up for this lost time. But he pushes back against the argument that this internal deliberation is bad in general or makes America look bad on the global stage. Here's Gallagher.
You know, we make our mistakes out in the open for the whole world to see. That's a strength of America, not a weakness. And in contrast to the Chinese Communist Party, for example, where you have a small group of people, now just one person effectively, making all the decisions behind closed doors and imposing it on the people. It's a people's house. We do it from the bottom up.
So as this process continues to play out, it is modern history in the making, since this is the first time that Congress has had to go past the 9th ballot when electing House Speaker. Steve, back to you.
Melina, thank you. Earlier today, Melina also had a chance to speak with a few members of Congress while at the Hill. Here's one of her exchanges with Congresswoman Kat Cammack.
I just wanted to ask about your response to Chip Roy's argument. He's made a couple of times that the process is broken, there's not debate, and that's kind of at least his goal here is to revive that spirit. What do you say to him?
I agree with Chip wholeheartedly. In fact, Chip and I had this conversation on the House floor yesterday. I came here because this process is broken and we have to fix it. But we are going to see people who are going to put their personal agendas, their personal vendettas, again, above the needs of the country, and that's not productive. Chip and I agree that the rules package had to change, and we have have been working to change it. I think things like having time to read the bills, single issue bills, getting a vote on the floor for a balanced budget amendment, term limit votes, these are things that we should all want, and that's what I'm supportive of. I think Chip has been 100% operating in good faith, and I support him.
And yesterday our host Steve Lance interviewed Bob Good, which has been obviously a leading voice in opposing McCarthy. His argument was sort of that McCarthy's track record, particularly on spending, hasn't been so fiscally conservative. Would you say that their demands right now are sound, or that argument is sound?
Well, that's the thing. If you continue to move the goalpost, then people aren't going to be able to really understand what your motivation is. 2 years ago, Bob Good supported Kevin McCarthy without hesitation. And so I'm not sure if his argument that the spending that has occurred under Speaker Pelosi has been the problem, which if that's the case, he needs to take that up with Speaker Pelosi. But I think the people, like I said, that are at the table willing to negotiate, to make this changes that make us better, more accountable, helping drain the swamp. These are the things that we as conservatives want, and we're going to continue to push for. But the people that have removed themselves from the negotiating table, those are the ones that we have to question. Are you actually doing this because you have a personal vendetta or not?
So when you say, just to clarify, when you say people have removed themselves from the negotiating table, are those the 20 all those 20 members, or just some of them?
No. There's several that are at the table as we speak, continuing to work through some of these nuanced issues. There is a handful of people that have said it doesn't matter what concessions are made, what wins we get, we will never support Kevin McCarthy. That's not helpful, and that's not putting the country first. And as an America First candidate, I think we need to be putting America first and doing what's best for the people. And so I think there's a very, very small group of people that are saying it's never going to be Kevin, and I don't care what happens as a result. And then there are conservatives saying, you know what, let's figure out a way to move forward. People like Chip Roy, people like Jim Jordan, like Byron Donalds. These are people who are operating in good faith. I do think that we will actually be better for this on the other side of it. It's just a little bit of a messy process right now.
Biden announcing new migration programs as he prepares to visit the southern border on Sunday. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the White House.
After 2 years in office, President Biden finally is set to visit the border.
And I will visit the border myself this Sunday in El Paso to assess border enforcement operations.
The announcement comes as Biden announces a new immigration program. The administration will now accept up to 30,000 migrants per month from Nicaragua, Cuba, Haiti, and Venezuela. But these migrants need to find a sponsor here in the U.S. and pass a background check, or else
will be swiftly expelled to Mexico.
But if your application is denied or you attempt to cross into the United States unlawfully, you will not be allowed to enter. Do not just show up at the border.
But an immigration expert told me today that a new program would still subject communities to an influx of illegal immigrants.
These people do not qualify for asylum under our laws, and therefore we're going to waste all this money putting them through immigration proceedings, and then they're still going to be living here illegally.
Meanwhile, Biden's trip this Sunday comes after 2 years of intense pressure from Republicans. And just a month ago, the trip didn't appear to be on Biden's mind.
Why go to a border state and not visit the border? Because there's more important thing going on.
And when asked today why now and what took so long,
I wanted to make sure that I knew what the outcome, at least the near outcome, was on Title 42 before I went down.
I raised that same question today to Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, but he didn't quite give an answer.
One more question, please. Reaction to Biden's trip to the border this weekend, and do you think it's overdue?
I'm very much looking forward to joining the president in El Paso this weekend. Thank you.
Reporting from the White House, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Longtime Democratic Senator Debbie Stabenow of Michigan will not be seeking re-election in 2024. Her retirement will impact Democrat leadership in the Senate. Stabenow announced today, quote, "Inspired by a new generation of leaders, I've decided to pass the torch in the U.S. Senate." The 72-year-old senator is the number 3 Senate Democrat. She's the chair of the Policy and Communications Committee as well as the Agriculture Committee. Meanwhile, Stabenow's Democratic colleague, Senator Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, announced today that he has prostate cancer. He was diagnosed last month and will undergo surgery in the coming months. The senator does not expect the illness to disrupt much of his work. And also in the Senate, Republican Senator John Kennedy said on Wednesday that he has decided not to run for governor in his home state of Louisiana. Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.